Some rearrangements. Sometimes we test the teachings of our grandparents and ancestors and stuff, and then go, oh yeah. That's by the toilet. I don't usually, I have that there if I'm in a rush, like if I want to just go somewhere, or if I have a visitor. But I usually use the shower, because, and this was not part of the plan, but I'll show you guys something. I've been doing this for months. I need to clean that. I'll wash that. Give it a mop. Now, see down there? See? Now, months later, and all of a sudden there's no issue, just flushes down. With the shower, it's a lot more cleaner, because you're not throwing more paper into the ocean, and it's a lot more that comes out. That's what I'm going to eat. Okay. I went to Anzac Anzac reef laying ceremony today, and someone wanted a ride there, and I was like, well, I'm going there, so I'll give you a ride there. And then they wanted to go to the beach and back then around to the park and go home, and so I was like, well, and they gave me $20 for doing that, so I was like, oh, cool. And so I spent $20 at Pack and Save. I got this Vietnamese chicken bowl. What else did I get? Salami and some potato and gravy. I went round to their house afterwards for coffee, but then decided not to stay there because their house was a dump. And I was like, yeah. Good day, but if you know what I mean. I believe in helping people, but here's the thing. I only got a certain amount of energy in the day, and I got to put all the energy to use to better my life, so I do these things as contributions, and people ask for things about autism and ADHD at the autism and ADHD groups, or people I know from them, then you will talk about it and give my experiences and knowledge and wisdom, and give them more knowledge than what the majority of the psychiatrists and pediatricians and physicians, because it's a lifelong wiring of the brain, because I try and be positive. And the thing is I have 37 years of experience of living with the two. Obviously I'm mild. The issues of, because they're talking about how this generation, and I've noticed something, I said this to this person that I've hung out with sometimes, that they're going on about this generation, and I said, yeah, but you know how up until about 2 years ago it was always boomer this, boomer that, and then now it's slowly changed to how these young ones these days, these Gen Zs, these millennials. It was always like that. We were the millennials when we were in our 20s, late teens coming into 20s, and then we started speaking back once we got to our later 20s or mid to late 20s. I didn't I was too busy trying to get my own life sorted, so I didn't start talking about it until I was in my 30s. Didn't even look at it because it was like solve these problems, solve these problems, solve these problems. Now it's like these other problems. Okay, now let's get onto this. But that's a reminder that all the economic problems, the housing crisis, the economy, and it used to be the job market because the economy is screwed in comparison to when we were kids because of previous our parents' generation. Our grandparents went to war and everything, had recessions and Great Depression, and so that economic stuff and the house market, and it used to be the job market, but now there's just as many millennials as there are baby boomers in the workforce, because our generation is just as big as theirs, numbers-wise. But we walked into an economic crisis for Western, in comparison to what they were given, And there's a housing market. Used to be the job market, but now that we got just as many workers as them that are of this generation, and we've got qualifications and all that, that's not really a problem anymore. But the other 50%, of, I'm talking about generational issues. I'm not talking about every single individual, The other stuff comes down to all the stuff through the social media, and that's where I've decided to step in, because they started talking about how it's all their fault, you know what I mean? But then it's like the other 50% issues that come from social media. Excuse me, but I didn't have Facebook till I was 23 years old, and I viewed that, and I was right. I viewed it as the breakdown of communication. Which is why I had a Bebo, but all I did was jump on there to see if anyone was doing anything on the weekend. They want to play basketball, you want to go to a rugby game, or anyone want to hang out. I might jump on there like once a week or so and just see if anyone had said anything. If no one had said anything, then just leave it at that. And that was it. It was very nonchalant. And then after the rugby guys not wanting to get together and not wanting to do this and that, it was, we'll FaceTime. Because I stopped playing rugby when I was 20 years old because I wanted to focus on my degree. But then what happened was, it was like I still wanted to keep contact with the guys and have a social life, in the weekends. My point is you have to take responsibility where it's your fault. And we blamed boomers for the economy and housing market, and used to be the problem with the job market, but now we have just as many workers, and we're all qualified and trained up, and there's just as many of us as them, millennials that is. But the other 50% that comes from social media, they might have had was it Polaroid? I don't even know. I didn't even know that existed. Take photos and stuff, but whatever. You know what I mean? Was it the intranet? They created intranet, but it was like, okay, you could search up Google for information or whatever. But millennials took social media from that to Facebook and Twitter. Next thing you know, you got Facebook, Twitter going harder. Okay, we can't blame them for that, and now that we have just as many workers who are just trained up, just as skilled in the job market as them, no point in, just focus on the future. And, you got to take responsibility for what you're responsible for. and don't let people blame you for what they're responsible for. Okay, see you.